Hi, I'm Chris from Airwindows, and I've been working on a bunch of different things. But the reason I'm talking to you today is because I'm working on something that's a little bit unusual. And, excuse me, somebody's fussy. Get more and more of that these days. Funny how that works. I'm working on something that's a little bit unusual, and I feel I need to explain it. I have a project going on where I am going to turn on Google Ads on all of my YouTube things. Now, the reason this is a big deal for me is this. I've been going for many years making a big point of shutting off all of the YouTube advertising on the basis of trying to, bring my information about my plugins to people without distraction and annoyance and all that kind of thing. There are very few people who dislike advertisements and spam and things like that more than me. I put out these plugins, and then I've even compiled a mailing list, and because when Kagi stopped, I put out a single email saying, does anybody want to be part of a mailing list that was just the Kagi generation of Airwindows users? And a whole bunch of people signed up for that, and then I haven't sent them anything because I don't like sending people advertising. Now, that's why I need to explain why my position's changed on YouTube. And it sort of falls under the category of, consider it a object lesson in why you might want to pretend that you want YouTube ad revenue when you actually don't, or seeing the self-interest, or how to not get blacklisted by algorithms. You see, a key point here, and I was talking about this with somebody on the internet at some point. They were talking about autoplay, and I've got it turned off because that's another thing that I don't like. Yes. And mentioned at some point, YouTube wants to make everybody turn on autoplay and then never turn it off again. Now, here's the thing about that is, in thinking about these things, we're dealing with a simply titanic multinational corporation. What? A titanic multinational corporation that is not answerable to anybody. And you can try to reach human beings in Google to talk about what they do or whatever, and kind of good luck. That's not really going to work. So we're in a position of figuring out how to deal with what I consider to be, and I'm writing a book on this. I hope I find time to do more of it. We're dealing with a organism. We're dealing with a giant corporation that functions not as people, but as a distinct entity, which has its own personality and all the other stuff that you might get from a person. There's been a lot of effort that's gone into trying to make corporations people, and it's been a fairly successful project in a number of ways. So in dealing with a person of that kind of power and control, you want to look for not necessarily ways of trying to have a power dynamic with it, but what its self-interest is and whether you can go along with that or not. Now, I like to use a thing called adblock, and I will always pursue that sort of thing for a variety of reasons, one of which is leaving adblock off is not really safe. There's a lot of malware out there that's coming across advertising networks, and it's a matter of who can make more money off of what, and if you can make more money off of blindly accepting malware, people are going to be more interested in paying you for that. Well, Google's role in this is rather interesting. What they want to do is get people set up in the dynamic where everybody's playing into this idea that ad revenue on huge amounts of free internet content is going to be successful. And if they were a much smaller company, they probably would have gone out of business by now from that, because it's a kind of a silly idea. However, they're one of the biggest things out there. And, like Apple is an enormous thing out there. Apple's doing things like making newer versions of Xcode not even work on older operating systems, and just the loop of that has tightened so much. And they're doing this as part of a kind of upgrade chain that forces people to continue to be engaged with buying their stuff. And it's an effective tactic. It's just not very friendly for people, and it's not very useful for staying functional and working, rather than spending all your time buying and installing new things, which I think is a really bad idea. Here's how that relates to Google. Is your ability to operate in conjunction with something like Google or YouTube is entirely conditional upon whether they're happy with you or not. And are we wanting to cuddle again? Excuse me. Always wanting some attention. Your ability to interact with them is conditional on whether they're happy with you, and whether you're buying into this concept of everybody is going to earn stuff off of advertising revenue. That is a silly concept, but they're basing their business on it, so we kind of have to humor them in a way. And I am staking my claim on Patreon for a number of reasons, one of which is that there's a stability about it. It's getting people who agree that they'd like to see you continue to work and continue to communicate with them, which is also what I'm doing here. I think that people could maybe benefit by rethinking this, depending upon how they look at it. Because the thing about a giant technology corporation forcing people to abide to its will, back in the day we saw that with Microsoft, and there was such a thing called antitrust, and it still wasn't terribly effective. There were operating systems like BOS that did not actually survive because of anti-competitive actions on the basis of the big ugly corporation. These days, I don't think we're going to be seeing things like antitrust. So basically, Google and YouTube get to do whatever they want. And as such, if you intend to function on the internet, it's a good idea to at least behave as though you're buying what they're selling and going along with what they intend. So I'm going through and I'm going to try to turn on pretty much, I won't ramp it up hugely. I think that ad block type things are capable of hitting pre-roll ads and stuff, but even though everything on airwindows YouTube channel has always had all the ads shut off because they're essentially plug-in ads already, I didn't feel as if I needed to make a play that I was going to be generating YouTube advertising revenue, and that was going to be a significant thing because I'm a programmer and I develop these plugins and that's what I do. Things are a little different now, and particularly with working on the Patreon and trying to reach an audience that knows what I do, knows the kind of stuff that I communicate, and values that enough to get involved with the Patreon. I have a gatekeeper at this point, and that gatekeeper is YouTube and Google. And in order to function in that context, I need to put on some protective coloration and behave as if I'm expecting that I'm going to be getting revenue from, Google ads and YouTube plays and things like that, which is nonsense. It really is nonsense, because all I need to do is reach people, and I don't need to keep dragging people in every day or every 5 minutes. I hear that people doing Twitch streaming, and I was looking into that because I'm getting into doing live streaming, and I'll be showing off, I think, the rig that I've got set up for that, some of which is very inexpensive. But I'm doing it on a Raspberry Pi. It's great fun. I'll tell you all about it. But the Twitch people are having to Twitch stream just about 24/7. All their time must be spent engaging with this thing, which is a killing process. One doesn't do that if you want to be a functional human being. But Twitch collectively has decided as a corporation that they think that's advantageous. And so that's what you do. Well, Google and YouTube aren't demanding that I put up things literally every day, but when I think about the expectations and self-interest, it seems very obvious to me that if I was running a completely unaccountable black box corporation where I was encouraging or reinforcing or linking to videos and not linking to other videos, pretty much the first thing I would look at is, can I put across a video and propagate it in such a way that somebody who is engaging with my advertising revenue and my advertising platform on which everything depends, can I propagate somebody like that and hook them up with more views and things versus somebody who maybe has, for whatever crazy reason, turned that off? It seems like a very obvious call to me. And, the reason that somebody would be stopped from doing something like that would be that it was anti-competitive or forcing the issue too much and tying people into things. And that would require, regulation and antitrust actions and things like that we used to see back in the days of Microsoft dominating operating systems. And we know what happened with that is Microsoft pretty much did. And Google pretty much did dominate the internet and are running a great deal of things. I'm going to have to be going into all of my little websites and setting them up to be HTTPS, because much like when Apple went to 64-bit plugins and I had to update everything to be 64-bit plugins, Google is quite capable of setting all of these things up and then all your default browsers, or at least Chrome, put up big flashing red signs saying, this website is insecure and untrustworthy. And it's the same website that it ever was. But they want people to be doing HTTPS because it ties in with having to go to somebody who's in control in order to get access to the internet. Now, I think it should be fairly obvious why I push for, turning off the advertisements, not hitting people with that stuff, not spamming people, not tying into all these kinds of things. I believe in that very deeply and will continue to believe in that very deeply. But then there's also the scenario of at what point is that crippling me and making me unable to reach people at all? Like I did update everything to 64-bit for the audio units back in the day. I was one of the first people to do it. And I updated my entire user base for free. And pretty much none of my plugins in any way take advantage of 64-bit addressing. It's just not relevant to what I do. There was no special reason to make it, you must do 64-bit addressing. That's the space that the plugin can take up, and memory. Mine don't take up nearly that much memory, so it's, I'll talk about the bit depth and dithering and stuff as well. If this video shoot works out properly, I'll use something like this. But I see that happening again. I mean, I didn't have to stop using Macs and start using Microsoft Windows PCs, largely because of the iPhone. But I am operating on the internet, and in a lot of ways Google controls the internet, and the videos that I'm putting up would be extremely difficult to host and deal with if not for the fact that YouTube and Google have another thing going on where they think they can make everybody try to get paid by them for views and do everything so that they can sort of take over all media, and everything has to become YouTube based for views. And at the point where they become able to literally shut me down for not going along with what they're trying to sell people, that's the point where I have to take it seriously, much as I took seriously the audio unit move to 64-bit addressing. So if you are watching videos and you're not running some kind of ad blocker, far be it from me to suggest that you do what I have done for years and couldn't live without, but you will be seeing advertisements and things on pretty much every video that I've got of any kind, and any YouTube channel that I have, because I feel this is just the way things are going to go. I feel that people will get frozen out if they are running HTTP websites, non-secure websites. And I feel people will get frozen out if they're not playing along with this advertising-based thing, even if it's not relevant. So I'm not going to make a claim of, please turn your ad blocker off so that I can get the advertising impressions and stuff. No, that's not what I'm doing it for. I'm not looking to get paid off of YouTube revenue, because that seems very scary to me. But I need to have the freedom to not come across as like, oh, this is an evil commie advertising blacklister. Let's not give them any publicity. I need to not have Google's algorithms think that when they look at me. So you're going to see advertisements unless you do some mysterious thing to not have to see them anymore. Who knew that was possible? But yeah, this is a fairly big change in my attitude, and I'm explaining why. And in explaining why, I'm also more or less suggesting that I think other people should do this if they want to be able to communicate to people on a large scale. I think there's going to be, if there isn't already, a correlation between people getting more publicity and getting linked to by these large services like Twitch and YouTube and so on, if you're going along with the thing and making it appear as if you're trying to use them full on, that you buy into it completely. You're trying to use what they do, and you're trying to get paid by them at their own terms and become completely subject to whatever it is that they have coming down the line. It's like a disguise. It's like a disguise of going like, why, I really want to be doing things the way you're doing it because that just seems like the most sensible financial decision for me. And it's really, no, it's because I think that you can lock out everybody who's not playing along with that. So my recommendation is for all of you to turn on all of your YouTube ads and then sort of warn people to take their own measures to get around it. Because I don't think it's going to go in a direction where people resisting that sort of, I don't think it's going to get better for Google and YouTube as far as running advertising and getting people to go along with the kind of thing they're suggesting. I don't think that's going to get any better for them. So I think they're going to try harder to get people to do that. And trying harder does not include paying people more for doing that or even having better terms by which they do that. I have every expectation that if I do earn anything other than 7 cents a day or something, it might be through you running YouTube ads and collecting a paycheck from them, they will phrase it up or make up some reason to not pay me. And, that's okay because I am in that boat with everybody else, but I'm trying to run this Patreon thing, which I find somewhat more trustworthy because they're nothing but a payment process. They're just like Kagi was that I used before them. And in order for anybody to hear about what I do or what I talk about, I need to go along with what Google and YouTube want me to do. That pretty much sums it up. So I will see whether I can't keep coming up with interesting things to talk to you about, but this was a bit of a zag where I've been zigging for a long time, and I thought it was worth explaining in depth. So thank you for your time and patience as I went on and on about this, and I'll talk to you later.